Hello and welcome to my channel. So have you ever asked yourself, how do you actually manage stakeholders in a project environment? Or what actually is a stakeholder in a project environment? What is their needs? How can they affect the project? So let us start by understanding what is a stakeholder in a project environment or program environment. So by definition, any group of people, any individual, any organization that may be affected or that is already affected or even that is perceived to be affected by the project or program is considered to be a stakeholder. Let me repeat that. So any individual, group of individuals, organization, business entity, government that is affected by the project or that may be affected by the project or that can also be perceived to be affected by a project is considered to be a stakeholder. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will help this channel to grow. It will also help this channel to produce more videos like this one. So you might be asking, Oscar, why should you learn about stakeholders in a project environment? I can tell you, stakeholders can make or fail a project. You're asking how. There are so many cases, you're going to see it as we go through the steps. Stakeholders can make or break the project. So it is quite important that from the beginning, you are able to know and identify your stakeholders for the project. If you don't do that, I can tell you, you're going to have so many surprises throughout the project. You might find that someone is expecting some reports and you had not identified that stakeholder. So obviously that report is not available and you won't be able to provide that. So it's quite important that you know the stakeholder management process in every program and every project environment. So let's move on. Let us appreciate that stakeholder management is not a one-time activity. It's a continuous process. So you might be asking, why is it a continuous process? So the first point to appreciate is it's not a one-time activity. This is very, very important, okay? So stakeholder management, it's not a one-time activity. It's something that you have to do from the beginning of the project all the way up to the end. So the second point now is stakeholders, they actually change over time. This is very important. Let me explain. It depends on the type of the project and also the size of the project and also the objectives of the project. But in most cases, you'll find that you might need specific stakeholders during the first phases. As you go through the phases or the stages of the project, you realize that you might want different stakeholders. If you want to understand more about what is a phase, what is a stage in a project, I've created a video on phase management or stage management. You can check it on my channel or you can check using the link in the description below. So, as you move from one phase to the other, stakeholders, they change. I'll give you a quick example of an ICT project and also construction. So, during the construction process, it will be illogical for you to start bringing in the plumbing team, for example, or even the roofing team when you are actually still preparing the foundation. So you find in some cases the roofing guys, they are going to be required towards the end. Even the painting guys, you don't need them probably during the creation of the foundation, but you need them towards the end. The same also applies to, if I can give you a good example of software development, you cannot ask testers to come while the system is still being built. Even if it's an agile program or agile project, you still need to give the developers some time to develop the solution before you bring in the testers. So stakeholders, they actually vary from stage to stage. That is very, very important to master. And then stakeholder also influence and interest also changes throughout the project. What do I mean by this? There are certain stakeholders, for example, if you talk of vendors, which means people who are supplying service to the project, their influence and also their interest might change throughout the project. If we go back to the software development example I was giving, during the initial stages, you find the vendor is very much involved because they're collecting requirements, they are building the prototypes, they're building the system. But when it comes to testing, of course, their influence is still there, but it's a bit limited because it's more of testing. The user is now testing the system and trying to accept the system. So stakeholder interest and influence also changes throughout. So that is why we are saying it has to be a continuous process. I've seen so many project managers making a mistake. They think that stakeholders just do it during initiation of the project. No, 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 no. That's not proper. After completion of every phase or stage, when you do a phase review or stage review, you also need to review the stakeholder register. Do you still have the same stakeholders? Do they have the same interest? Or do you need to add additional stakeholders? Do you have to remove some stakeholders? So take it as part of the process you take through all the way up to the end of the project. There are certain... Then, the next one is you need to continuously adjust the stakeholders. This is very important. You need to continuously adjust the stakeholders. So adjusting the stakeholders, you remove some, you add some, depending on the phase, depending on the interest. In some cases, you might even require to issue new contracts. That is procurement now. You need to issue new contracts to stakeholders. For example, there are new vendors coming in because of the phase or the stage of the project. So it is quite important that you master that. There are 6 steps that you have to follow for you to identify stakeholders in a project environment or program environment. So the first stage is stakeholder identification. This is very, very important. Stakeholder identification is very important. So why do you have to identify stakeholders? Like I said earlier, stakeholders can make or break a project. So the moment you identify them, the earlier you identify them, the better for the project. Because you're going to be able to know, say for example, you're looking at communication. When are you supposed to communicate? When are they requiring specific report? Who are you supposed to communicate to? How are you supposed to communicate? Is it email or anything? If you want to understand more about project communication, I've created a video on project communication. You can watch it from my channel, or you can also access it using the link in the description below. So it is very, very important that you identify the stakeholders in a program and project environment. So the next point now is you need to appreciate that we have 2 categories of stakeholders. We have external stakeholders. We also have internal stakeholders. So this is very, very important. An example of internal stakeholder, it could be your functional managers, or even it could be even your FD, which is financial director, or CFO, chief financial officer, or it could be ICT department, or even HR, or even finance. It depends. So those are some of the examples of internal stakeholders that you have to consider. You also have external stakeholders. For example, regulator, the government, local authority, for example, or even another service provider, like the one who is giving you for taxis, for electricity, for whatever you want to consider. So external stakeholders also you need to consider. These 2 categories are very important. You should be able to categorize them as external or internal before you do any other process of stakeholder management. You should be able to identify the external and external stakeholders. Now, the next one is also on the decisions and influences. So stakeholder identification actually involves identifying especially those stakeholders who are holding the decision for the project or who have got influence into the project. You might be asking, Oscar, why should we know about it? I can explain to you. Imagine you leave out a stakeholder who is going to provide some service, critical service to your project. I'll give you a good example. A vendor. You leave out a vendor who is going to provide the infrastructure for the project. And then only later to realize that that stakeholder was not involved. I can tell you, it's going to derail your project. It's actually going to delay your project. You won't be able to move until that infrastructure is provided. So identifying stakeholders is also important because you also be able to identify influencers and decision makers. So keep that in mind, that identification of stakeholders, you need influencers, you also need to know the decision makers. That is very important. Identification, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will help this channel to grow. It will also help this channel to produce more videos like this one. Third part is also to have an understanding of supporters and also opponents. I know opponents can sound very scary, but I can tell you, even from my experience, there are certain projects you are going to be involved where you're going to have some people supporting the project. Probably it's because the project is going to affect them positively. Remember, stakeholder is affected or is perceived to be affected by the project. So they're going to be affected positively. So most likely they're going to like the project. I can give you a good example. Say the project is going to enable a certain department or individual, group of individuals, to be very efficient and effective in their work. Most likely they're going to support the project. There are also cases where probably the project is going to affect someone's job. I was involved in one of the ICT projects where one department was actually doing the manual work, and after automation of the system, the whole department of 6 people was actually reassigned to other departments. So these are the stakeholders being affected negatively by the project, and most likely you'll find resistance. We saw the resistance because to them it was like their job is gone, but at the end of the day they were actually benefiting because they were reassigned. So you always find some opponents, some people or some individuals, group of individuals who are going to oppose the project in whatever way, thinking that it's going to fail. If it fails, they're going to win, but if it doesn't fail, they know that they're going to lose. So you also need to identify those opponents. I can tell you, if you don't identify them, you face challenges. They can also affect your project, which is very, very important. So you should be able to identify those who are supporting the project, identify those who are opposing the project. It's very important when it comes to stakeholder identification. The most important parts you need to consider also is there could be some hidden and also direct stakeholders. So you might be asking, Oscar, what does it mean to say a hidden stakeholder? There are some stakeholders which you might not be able to identify, especially from the beginning. It might only be coming out as you go through the project. You start hearing someone giving some comments which are very critical to the project, but you have never heard about that person. I can give you a good example. Most of the auditors, internal auditors in an organization, they might not want to be involved from the beginning of the project, but you might find them towards the end of the project, asking for this document, asking for this sign-off, asking whether this particular process was followed, asking if all the payments are being done. So some of them are normally hidden stakeholders. So you need to also identify them. If you don't identify these hidden stakeholders, you get surprises. I was surprised in some of my projects, and I believe you'll also be surprised in some of your projects. So as a lesson learned, you should be able to identify all hidden or indirect stakeholders. For example, I can give you a regulator. A regulator in most cases might not be very direct in terms of a stakeholder. But as you proceed, say for example, you are doing some construction of a building in a swampy area. Obviously, the regulator is going to come in and check if, say for example, your foundation is strong enough to support the weight of the building, or if you have followed some specific regulations that you're supposed to do as you go through the construction of that building. So if you have not identified such specific stakeholders, you're going to be surprised when they come in, they're asking for so many compliance issues, compliance documents, registrations document, and so on and so forth. So if you're a program manager or project manager, you should always put effort to identify all these hidden and also indirect stakeholders. I can tell you that will serve your project. It will help your project to be successful. So always consider this particular category of stakeholders. If you want me to create more videos based on the concepts and the ideas that we have gone through in this video, you can reach out to me or you can let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.